In the frozen Montana wilds, Jack Carter found a dying bobcat kitten, bringing it home against all odds. What followed was a bond that defied nature and changed his life forever. But what happened next will shock you. Let's go back to the beginning. In the stillness of the Montana hills, Jack Carter had never sought anything more than solitude. His ranch, with its sprawling fields of golden grass and rugged snow-capped mountains a distance, was the only world he'd ever known. It was a life bound by the rhythm of the seasons, the crackling warmth of a hearth at night, and the simple companionship of Max, his golden retriever. Max had been there since Jack was a boy, growing older with him, watching the world change around them while their bond only deepened. Max's eyes, though soft and loyal, were always alert, as the dog understood that Jack's peace was fragile, built on the silent agreement of man and animal against the wild and untamed world outside. There was an unspoken trust between them, a shared understanding of quiet strength. The winter evening when Jack found Leo was no different from any other. The air was crisp, biting even, and the earth beneath his boots crunched like frozen glass. The hunt was a familiar routine, a way to fill the larder and keep his skills sharp. Yet the tracks that led him into the thick underbrush that evening weren't the ones of deer or elk, the usual prey. They were strange, almost out of place, and Jack felt an eerie pull to follow them. Max, with his usual enthusiasm, sniffed the air, urging Jack forward. They wound through the woods until the familiar hum of the wind died down, and there, lying limp and lifeless in a patch of snow, was something Jack had never expected to see. It wasn't the animal he'd been tracking. It was a wild bobcat, barely larger than a house cat, but further had been matted and frozen by the unforgiving cold. Its tiny form, barely alive, seemed as fragile as the snowflakes that drifted down from the dark sky. Jack's first instinct was to turn away, to continue on his path, but something stopped him. Max stood over the little creature, his warm breath visible in the frozen air, nudging the bobcat gently with his nose. Jack knelt beside it, his heart heavy with an unfamiliar pull. He had seen animals in distress before, but none that stirred the sense of protectiveness in him. Without a second thought, Jack scooped the kitten into his arms, feeling its small body tremble against the cold. It was barely conscious, and he wasn't sure it would make it through the night, but there was no question in his mind. He couldn't leave it there to die. He carried it back to the cabin, where the fire crackled with warmth, and set about the delicate task of reviving it. He wrapped it in a soft blanket, placed it by the hearth, and sat silently, his eyes never leaving the fragile creature. Hours passed before Jack could even dare to hope, but just as the last of the night's shadows began to recede, the bobcat stirred, its eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. In that moment, something shifted within Jack. The decision to keep Leo wasn't one born of logic. It was instinct, as if the universe had conspired to place the creature in his care. He didn't know what it would mean for his life or if he was equipped to care for something so wild, but one thing was certain. He couldn't let go, and so Leo stayed. In the weeks that followed, as the winds howled outside and the snow built drifts against the windows, the odd trio of Jack, Max, and Leo formed a family of sorts. Max, with his patient and protective nature, watched over Leo as the kitten grew stronger, though it never lost its wild edge. The bond between them was palpable. Max, the ever-watchful older brother, and Leo, the free-spirited wild child who seemed to walk between two worlds. Jack often marveled at how seamlessly they fit together, like pieces of a puzzle that had been waiting for the right time to snap into place. Leo, despite his wild roots, began to trust Jack and Max in ways that defied logic. The three of them were inseparable, bound by something deeper than just a need for survival. It was the beginning of a bond that would defy the expectations of nature and reshape Jack's world in ways he could never have imagined. As the seasons turned into years, Jack watched with a quiet sense of awe as Leo transformed from the frail, trembling kitten he found on the snow-covered ground into a creature of untamed beauty. His coat, once soft and matted, had grown thick and lustrous, a striking blend of rich tawny browns and deep shadows. His eyes, bright and piercing, held the secrets of the wild, and every movement he made seemed to carry the weight of centuries of instinct. Yet despite the fierceness that ran through his veins, there was no mistaking the soft rhythm of his purr when he curled up next to Max, or the way he nuzzled Jack's hand for attention. Much like the dog had done when he was a pup, Leo's wildness was never something Jack tried to tame. It was a part of him, a force that couldn't be subdued, only respected. In the mornings, Jack would often find him perched high on the fence posts, watching the world unfold beneath him with the quiet focus of predator. Max, the calm companion, would be lying in the grass nearby, his tail flicking lazily as if to say, "I've got this." It was a quiet understanding between the two, one that had developed over the years. Max had long ago accepted that Leo would never be a dog, not in the way he was. The Bobcat didn't want to be a part of Jack's world in the same way Max did. No, Leo was something different, something wild, but he had found a place in this world nonetheless, and that place was beside Jack. There were moments when Jack would catch himself staring at the two animals, one so deeply grounded in his loyalty to Jack, the other so deeply attuned to the earth and its rhythms, and wondered the strange beauty of it all. Max, in his patient, easygoing manner, seemed to offer the kind of acceptance that Leo never would have found in the wild. The dog's presence was a grounding force, a reminder that even the fiercest hearts could learn to coexist with those who were different. And Leo, in turn, offered something to Max that Jack couldn't, a wildness that gave the dog a deeper understanding of the world beyond their little cabin. Together, they were a balance, each offering something to the other that they couldn't find on their own. But there was always a quiet undercurrent of unease in Jack's heart, a gnawing worry that never quite left him, despite the comfort he found in watching them together. He couldn't shake the thought that Leo, in all his strength and independence, might one day decide the world outside was where he truly belonged. There were moments when Jack would see the flicker of something in Leo's eyes, a yearning for the hills beyond the ranch, the dark forest where he had once roamed freely, and it would remind him